And knowing that our existence in samsara is quite insecure, that things are changing all the time and are conditioned by past actions and so on. So let's have a determination to greet whatever comes our way, however unexpected it is, whether it's good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. Let's greet it with a Dharma mind and the determination to bring it, bring that experience into our practice, or bring our bring our practice into that experience. And the best way to do that is to have a very big mind that considers the welfare of all living beings and is aimed at full awakening in order to bring that about. And the next one that we're on now is the shackles of miserliness. Okay? So, binding embodied beings in the unbearable prison of cyclic existence with no freedom, it locks them in craving's tight embrace. The shackles of miserliness, please protect us from this danger. So we're calling out to Tara for this. So, miserliness. Sometimes it's translated as stinginess. Yeah. What it means is being excessively attached to our own possessions to the point of not wanting to share them or separate them or give them to anybody else. Okay, so it's a mind that is grasping very, very tightly at our own possessions. So it could be money, it could be, anything. Yeah. And so we often think, oh, I'm not so attached to this, that, or the other thing. I could give this away, no sweat. Until the situation comes along where we could give it away, and then we don't want to. Okay? So it's quite interesting to observe how in some situations we can give very freely, in other situations forget it. And it happens to be the same object. Yeah. So I did this with a little exercise with the group in Seattle when I was teaching. Were any of you there? Yeah. So we had I gave them the homework assignment. I can give it to you too, see what happens. Okay. So when you get home, clean out either one chest of drawers or one closet. I'm not asking you to do the whole house. Just one thing, okay? And anything that you haven't used in a year, give away. Because I figure if we haven't used it in all of the seasons, then chances are we don't really need it. Yeah. So I had given this assignment to, because we were doing the 6 paramitas, so talking about generosity. And it was very interesting, People came the next week, and a number of people forgot to do the exercise. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I was most entertained by it was one woman said that she cleaned out her drawers and she found a T-shirt from when she had gone to Mexico many years before. It was a souvenir for her Mexican trip. And she had forgotten she even had the t-shirt, but she found it in the bottom of the drawer. But once she saw it, even though she didn't know she still had it, she could not bring herself to give it away. Yeah? So how many things do we have in our house that we don't even remember that we have and we haven't used in years? Yeah. But can we give them away? Or the moment we see them, all of a sudden, I got to hang on to this. I can't give it away. So she had that experience. One person, got the things out of the drawers and into a bag, and the bag stayed in the house. Somebody else got the bag as far as the front door, but not out of the front door. Somebody else got it into their truck, into the trunk of the car. I don't think anybody got it to the charity, if I remember correctly, because it was supposed to be given to a charity. Yeah, I don't think one person got it to the charity. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? And these are things that we haven't even used in a year, that we may not even know we have, that aren't essential. Yet we can't bear to separate from them. So I had a severe case of this also when I lived in India. My reason was that I was flat broke. And that was true. I think I had $50 to my name and no return ticket to the West, and that was it. And yet, by the standards of the Indian beggars who lived in the village where I was rich, because at least I had that $50. And when I would walk down to the bazaar to do my shopping, the beggars, there were some lepers who were, who lived in the community. We knew them. Everybody lives there, so you see the same people. And so they were sitting on the side of the road. At that time, this was back in, when? The 70s, okay? So yeah, maybe 76. And so then a cup of tea in India was worth 25 paisa, yeah? Now it's worth what? I don't know, 10, 15 rupees. But at that time, like, it was equivalent to maybe 1 or 2 pennies. But I couldn't, I would take teachings from my teacher Geshe Nawandage in the morning and feel all exuberant and generous, and then walk to the bazaar once a week. And it was so difficult for me to give 25 paisa to each beggar so they could have a cup of tea. I mean, that's how strong the miserliness was. So, yeah, I had to really talk myself into it each time. So it's interesting to watch that mind that can't share, that doesn't want to give things away. And it's a mind of poverty. When we, in the inner mandala, when we say that we're giving all these things without a sense of poverty, yeah, what it's meaning is without feeling like we're poor and that we're going to miss it if we give it away. Yeah. But it's interesting that no matter how much we have, we tend to have a feeling of poverty. Yeah. I don't have enough, and if I give it away, for sure I will need it. Yeah, for sure. So if you're like me, I'm much better now. I don't do this now, but I would save all sorts of little containers, because I found little containers very interesting. I would always need one when I didn't have one. For paper clips or who knows what, to use to keep my leftovers in. Yeah. So I would save little containers in case I needed them. And of course, some of them would sit there for quite a long time, never being used. But I didn't want to throw them away because I'm sure I would need them the next day. And inevitably I would. I lived for a while as staying in someone else's home when I lived in Seattle for part of the time. And in her basement, she had all sorts of cardboard boxes, and what I had was small containers, she had with big cardboard boxes. Could not throw them away. Yeah. Basement full of them. Okay, so some of us, have these things, yeah. Um, but then, so these are like things that you may someday use, but probably not soon, yeah. But then there's all sorts of other things that we also can't bring ourselves to give away. Yeah. We have a friend come over to eat, so we give them, we serve the whatever it is that we don't like so much in the hopes that they like it, and then the good ones that we have we can keep to eat when we're alone. Okay, you know that one? Maybe some of you don't do that. Um, yeah, but this incredible feeling of poverty that we never have enough, and that if we give something, then we will lack, we will be, miss it. So it doesn't matter how wealthy you are. Sometimes wealthy people are the most miserly, yeah, and have the most difficulty in giving. Sometimes when you're really poor, you just give because you're not going to have anything tomorrow anyway. So, and what you give, you might as well share with other people who don't have. Okay? But it's an interesting thing to look at in our own mind, the reluctance to give, to share, and the reasons that we come up with to justify it. Yeah? As much as we talk about the value of sharing and generosity, and as much as when we were kids, our parents taught us to share, and, we teach the younger generation to share. But then we find it's very hard ourselves to do it. Okay? So, yeah, it's an interesting state of mind to look into. Yeah. Why? Yeah, it's a very fearful mind, isn't it? It's a fearful mind, an anxious mind. Okay, so binding embodied beings in the unbearable prison of cyclic existence with no freedom. So binding, that's the word. That describes miserliness. When we're miserly, we are bound. Yeah. Our heart is bound. Our hands are bound. Yeah. There's no open-handedness. We're bound like that. Okay. And in the unbearable prison of cyclic existence with no freedom, so here's this miserliness that is preventing us from creating virtue. Yeah. And the reason that the miserliness is the opposite of generosity, generosity is one of the easiest virtues to create. That's why it's one of, when we list the six perfections, it comes first. It's the easiest. Even secular people are generous. Yeah, everybody in the world values generosity like that. But we're shackled by miserliness. You know, you have shackles on. And so you can't get yourself to move, to give. Okay? So it locks them in craving's tight embrace. So miserliness is a form of craving. You know, here a craving for what we already possess, an unwillingness to give it up and share it. And so the shackles of miserliness, please protect us from this danger. So sometimes we hear things about miserly disadvantages of miserliness, the benefits of generosity, and then we think, oh, I've got to give everything away. Yeah. And that's not the point, because we can give everything away and still be very attached to it. Okay? So the point is to be reasonable, yeah, to give what we're able to with a happy mind. Yeah. If we give but our mind isn't happy, then somehow it's not really a gift. Yeah. Now, does that mean when our mind isn't happy we shouldn't give? Or does that mean that when our mind isn't happy to give, we need to change our mind? Okay? So it's probably the latter, but again, it doesn't mean we have to give more than we comfortably can afford, or, you know, like this. And being generous involves wisdom too, to give to people at the right time, and to know that what we give will be used wisely. Now, in some of the stories that we hear in the scriptures, it seems like some of the people are giving things which they know will not be used wisely. Yeah? What is it? Shariputra. There was a non-Buddhist who asked Shariputra for his hand. So he cut off his hand and gave it to him. And the other guy got angry. Yeah, because he gave him his right hand. Because in India, you know, your left hand is the hand you use to clean yourself. So you don't want to give that. But he cut off his right hand, so he had to hand it to the guy with his left hand. So the guy was insulted, you know, and threw it back at him. And then Shariputra lost his bodhicitta at that point. So, yeah, which is not so good to do. But the thing is you're left with the story wondering, why did he give his hand? You know, I mean, what good is a it's not a decapitated, a severed hand, you know, for somebody else. So this is another example. When I said the other day about the stories, yeah, the point of the story is that you have such a generous mind that you're willing to give your hand. You know, you're so unattached to even your body that you can give your hand. Yeah. But the point of the story is not that we go around giving our hand to somebody who's just going to throw it back at us, who doesn't really need it. Okay. So I think, you know, at least I know for myself, and when they talk in the Perfection of Generosity about how to practice it, there's really wisdom that has to be involved. So, for example, when I encounter beggars in downtown cities or something, since I know some of them have drug and alcohol problems, I will give food instead of money, because everybody eats food. Now you could say, of course, that they may sell the food or trade the food for some drugs or alcohol, but there's a better chance that they'll eat the food than that they'll eat the coins. Yeah, or they'll eat the bills. So, you know, I like to give food. Again, it doesn't mean that you give to You have to give to everybody who asks in order to free yourself from miserliness. Uh, if, when you're in India, if you start giving, you're in Bodh Gaya while His Holiness is teaching, if you give to one beggar, you're going to be swarmed. Yeah. Uh, so it's actually quite nice. Sometimes people will get the beggars to sit down in a line, and then everybody goes through and gives a little bit to each one. But otherwise, sometimes, they crowd around you. You can't walk. It's really a bit difficult. Yeah. So, and I think too, I know for myself, when I give to different charities, I want to make sure that the money is used according to how it said it's going to be used. And so often I will check, how much they spend on their own admin and how much actually goes for the point of the charity. Yeah. And charities, any group that receives funds from the public, I think, has a very big responsibility to use the funds exactly as for the purpose that they were given for. So I know in our Vinaya, our monastic precepts, we have many precepts about that, that if people give us things, we have to use them exactly for what the person said they want it used for, if they specify some specific thing. And if we can't use it for that, then we have to go back to the person and say, we can't use it for that because maybe we already have whatever it was. Can we use it for something else, or would you like us to return it? Yeah. So there's, definitely a responsibility in there. But I think many of, the stories that we hear are told so that we get the feeling of having a heart that is just completely open, so that we can give, they say, as easily as giving a carrot from one hand to the other. Yeah. And so there's a story of the Buddha. There was one woman who was quite miserly. So in order to help her overcome her miserliness, he had her practice giving a carrot from one hand to the other. Yeah. It sounds kind of silly, but if you think that it's, you know, if you can get used to the gesture like this, maybe you could make a 90-degree angle gesture so it goes into somebody else's hand. But if you can't even get it to your other hand, then, you're really stuck. Okay, so one of the Buddha's skillful means. We haven't talked much about generosity this course. Sometimes I do things that are, we have discussion groups about it, because miserliness isn't the only thing that prevents our generosity. Sometimes, well, instead of me telling you what I found out, let me ask you the question: what prevents generosity in you?
Pride, because I used to be able to give at a certain level and I can't do that at the moment. So then there's this pride that arises and kind of dismisses what I want to do because I get caught up in pride and reputation and stuff.
So how do you get caught up in pride? Meaning, like, I'm giving less than I did, so I don't.
And well,
Look
there's
at good,
it's kind of like I must be basing my value on what I'm able to give as opposed to, that's kind of coloring things so much. So then I may not give out of pride, like, oh, this really isn't enough, and then what are other people going to think of this? Yeah.
A self-centered thought. I might need it more than someone else. I kind of think that one of the reasons generosity is the first paramita is because it's a way of taking what we have and changing, giving it to someone else, like the carrot from one hand to another. Then you're giving to another person, and you're starting to value that person. And I think there's a lot in generosity about just learning to value the other person.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's
So a
that,
lack of really valuing the other person.
yeah,
can
and like
prevent
you said,
us.
the fear of not having it
Yeah,
for ourselves.
right. That's the miserliness part of it. Okay. Yeah?
For me, it feels like it comes with some doubt. Am I giving enough? Should I give more or less? You know, like how much is reasonable?
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah. So we often do this. It's like we're not just giving from our heart, but it's like how much is suitable to give in this condition? Because I don't want to look too cheap, but I don't want to really give more than I have to either. Like that?
like that, and also, yeah. I mean, should I give my whole money or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Exaggerating, but it's really how much is also reasonable? Should I give? You know, like I don't know.
Yeah. So also, yeah, how much is reasonable? How much? How am I going to look? I don't want to give too much so that I look like I'm really rich, because then they'll expect more from me later. But I don't want to give not enough, because then they'll think I'm cheap.
Well, I'm not using my car. Should I give it away?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to be practical. So,
I struggle when in our local community, there's usual panhandlers on the street. Small community, you see a dozen of them day in, day out, and they're sitting in front of the Tim Hortons or whatever, and they got their little hat out, and they're looking for food or money. And right away I go into a judgment of that person. I'm saying, he's a young man, he's got his dog there, his guitar, and
oh, gee.
why
Yeah.
it's almost they're sucking you in. You feel you're getting sucked in, and then you see them down the street 2 hours later, either stoned or sitting in the bar or whatever. So I struggle with that.
Yeah. So again, it's a thing of wisdom, Is your gift going to be useful? What about talking to them?
I do talk to them, and they're not really too interested in well, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the money? Oh, I just need a coffee. Well, you've got a stack of 3 Tim Hortons cup right in front of you.
Yeah.
Like,
But I think it might be interesting to say, why are you sitting here panhandling? What brings you? What happened in your life that is bringing you here to this place to do this? And hear something about the person's history.
I will certainly try that.
Yeah. Might be interesting.
So I'll say 2 things. One is I had a friend that did exactly that. He was about 60. And he had been in Vietnam, and he just stopped and was going to give this fellow some money, and then recognized that the panhandler was someone from his own unit, combat unit, 30 years down the road. And of course, they had an amazing conversation. Went, got clothes for the guy, and tried to take care of him as best he could. But that was a really interesting case where just stop and recognize this person's a human, and then,
Right.
oh my gosh, right? It's someone that he was actually in war with, that was still struggling with all the pain 30 years later, and just couldn't put things together. And then I'll answer the question, which is, what are some other things? I think for me, sometimes I wonder if I'm being swindled, like made the fool.
They're taking advantage of you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like this little battle in my head. There's a debate that goes on when I see people. I don't know, like, am I just being swindled?
Yeah.
Like, or,
Yeah. And so that's also swindled. I'm not talking just about giving to beggars, too, but also giving to friends or acquaintances. And I've had people tell me that they have a hard time giving to friends because, no, actually, it's the other way around. They have a hard time accepting gifts from friends because they're afraid that they're going to be obliged afterwards to do something for that person. Yeah. So the whole thing of generosity isn't just about giving and overcoming miserliness or fear or whatever it is. But I think another element of generosity is learning how to accept. Yeah, because the other person wants to give. And if we just react with no, 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 then we're preventing them from creating merit. And often they feel quite hurt. Like, what, my gift isn't good enough for you? So, so some people said, well, I don't like to accept gifts because then I'm going to feel obliged to the other person, or I'm afraid that they won't have something when they need it. So there's all sorts of what we're coming down to here again is the conceptual mind. Yeah, making up all sorts of reasons that we don't know if they actually apply to the situation or not. Yeah. So it's hard for us to accept when people give us things, and it's hard for us to give things to people, because both accepting and receiving and giving involve, our mind can go with, well, what are people going to think of me? Yeah. And am I going to be obliged? Am I in debt? Is it enough? Is it too much? Am I getting swindled? I mean, it's amazing the number of thoughts that can come up in our mind that prevent giving the carrot. Yeah? It's very interesting when you start to look. Yeah.
This actually also reminds me of the generosity of accepting a thank you.
Yes.
I used to perform and stuff, and then people would, come and say they liked it, whatever. And I would spend my time saying how bad what I did, how I made this mistake, I made that mistake. And someone finally told me, what you're doing is you're telling them they're a liar. You're taking away from what they're trying to give you. So that broke me of that habit.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's what many of us do. We think, if we get some praise, we're unworthy of it, or somebody gives us a gift, we're unworthy. So we go and say, oh, I don't deserve this, and I'm not so good. And it really is like, in terms of praise, like telling somebody that they're a fool and they're a liar, or in terms of, not accepting a gift because we're afraid we're going to feel obliged or whatever. It's like telling somebody your gift isn't good enough for me, because they don't know why we're saying no. So, yeah, we need to be careful there.
What I struggle more with is being generous with my time, because that's where I feel like my boundaries are getting pushed, and I'm very much a grasp onto routine, and and don't like getting pulled out of that, and especially with somebody that I don't particularly know, that wants your attention, that wants to monopolize your time for however long, and you're like, how do I get away from this person?
Yeah.
like that. When often, if you just force yourself to stay there and listen, like something very meaningful can come out of that. But the tendency is always, from my side, is to sort of pull back and,
Yeah.
I'm busy, I've got other places to go and things to do.
Yeah.
I think, people, that can be a lot more meaningful, like you said, with homeless people and beggars. A lot of times they do really, it really has more of an impact on them for you to sit down and take interest and have a cup of coffee with them, or ask them to breakfast or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That can be really a lot more meaningful than giving them $10.
Yep. Very much. Yeah, so it's not just stinginess with material things. It's also stinginess with our time and stinginess with our energy. Yeah, people ask us for help. Yeah. And we don't feel like doing that, and so we come up with some excuse. And the infallible excuse is, I'm too busy. Because nobody, when you say I'm too busy, nobody can question that. Yeah. But actually, it's, I don't feel like it. Or doing that is below me. Or you aren't worthy of having my help. Or, who knows what kind of things are going on in our mind. Yeah. But very often, we're asked, people just ask us for help doing one thing or another. And all of a sudden we're incredibly busy. Yeah. It's kind of like sometimes at our stand-up meetings, somebody will need, who's supposed to cook, has something else to do, and they say, can somebody cook for me today? And the whole group is silent. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. Until finally one person gingerly raises their hand so the rest of us can eat. And then everybody goes, phew, at least I don't have to do it. But here it is, an opportunity to cook food for the Sangha, which is something that's meritorious. But we don't want to do it. Yeah. Because we're busy doing, I don't know what, something else. Yeah. We're getting ready. You know what we're always doing? We're always getting ready for a retreat. Yeah. Yeah, in our mornings when we're going around, what are you doing? Oh, I'm getting ready for retreat. Oh, I'm catching up after retreat. Oh, I'm getting ready for the course. Oh, I'm catching up after the course. Nobody says what they're really doing. Yeah, I'm getting ready. Yeah, so for 3 days they're getting ready. I'm not quite sure what they're getting ready, what they need to do that's so difficult, that's requiring the whole day to get ready.
I learned something recently. I don't know if it will change my generosity. I realized I was less generous than this person who had less money than me. And what I learned, though, is that I think might help me at least think about it differently, is that one of the problems is when I would give this person money, they constantly never had enough money, but they often gave away money. And that kind of thought, well, that's kind of irresponsible. But what I learned recently is that this is a different, I don't even want to say culture, but if you are on the edge and the people you are around are on the edge, you take care of each other.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a loyalty thing.
Right.
And so if you have money, you take care of somebody, and that's how it goes. And so it really was good for me to think about this differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of saying, what are you doing? You're asking me for money and now you're giving it away. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that person's practicing generosity. Nice. Okay, so are we done with miserliness? We finished with it. It's an uncomfortable state of mind, though, isn't it? Yeah. And And this thing, let me just talk a little bit more about this. The thing with our time and our service. Yeah, how sometimes, again, we hesitate to step in. It looks like somebody needs some help or something, but we hold back. And I'm thinking here of one incident that I was at one Buddhist center, and I was living across the street where the nuns lived. And the monks had taken down their garbage to the street, and so one of the monks had come to get the empty garbage cans and take them up. And so I was outside for I don't know what. And my instant reaction was, oh, I'll go and offer to help him take the cans up. I mean, they aren't our cans. They're you know, the center's cans. But my instant reaction was, oh, I'll do that. And then I pulled back because it was a monk who sometimes wasn't so agreeable. And not because it wasn't like, well, he criticized me, so I'm not going to do anything nice for him. It wasn't that kind of mind. But it was more a mind of, I might invoke his upset for who knows what reason, because he was somebody who would sometimes get upset for no reason, So I kind of squashed my instinct there to give, to offer a few minutes of help there out of fear of his reaction. Yeah. So it's interesting to look at how many times, there's possibilities or opportunities, and then we pull back due to whatever thought there is in our mind at that time, that thinking, oh, I can't do that. What will they think of me? How will they act? Yeah. And none of that is really so important. Yeah. Unless you think somebody's just gonna, go bonkers if you give them a present. But I don't think that happens so often.
I just want to add that I think becoming a monastic helped me a lot with purifying my motivation for giving.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least in Chinese culture, it's a lot about face, right? So most of my generosity was about looking like I could afford it. So I'm going to buy drinks for everyone, or buy food for everyone, or get gifts. None of which was genuine at all. And then now as a monastic, you don't do that. You have to find other ways to connect with people in a more authentic way. And I'll always remember, and we had this whole thing of me always wanting to give a lot of things away in Asia, and you being like, what are you thinking? I remember you telling me very clearly, like, we are monastics, we give the Dharma. Yeah. Our job is not to go around distributing presents.
Yeah.
And just to help me set my mind straight, because I think that's very much ingrained,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, gotta go give stuff
Yeah.
to look good.
Yeah. Yeah, so really checking the motivation for giving. Yeah, I remember that too. Because we always bring presents for the Friends of Sravasti, Abbey, Singapore, and certain people. But she was coming along with presents for people that we don't ordinarily give presents to, even when the people we ordinarily give presents to said, stop, don't give us anything. And so... Yeah, we were always, before everything, putting gifts in a bag. Kind of, and I said, stop being Santa Claus. Yeah. Yeah. So while it's good to give, sometimes you have to make sure the motivation is clear, and that also it's in an appropriate situation. Okay. Then number 7, the flood of attachment. Okay. So after miserliness, we have attachment. Miserliness is a form of attachment, sweeping us in the torrent of cyclic existence so hard to cross. We're conditioned by the propelling winds of karma. It tosses us in the waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. The flood of attachment, please protect us from this danger. Okay, so here there's a lot to say about attachment. There's many different forms of attachment. And in the 57 faults that Nagarjuna pointed out, there's many forms of attachment that he lists. So there's just the attachment of, this is my book, and I'm not going to give it to you or whatever. Then there's the attachment to material possessions, to money. Then there's attachment to people, which is stronger, how much we're attached. We talked about this before. You are my whatever it is. Therefore, you belong to me, and I'm not going to separate from you. Okay. And then there's attachment to reputation, to looking good. Yeah. Attachment to praise and approval and love and appreciation. And then also what they're talking about here is a deeper kind of attachment that is attached to our body and attached to having an identity in cyclic existence. It's basically attached to being reborn. So as much as being reborn in samsara is miserable and painful, and we say we want out, we're also very attached to it because we have an identity. And at the time of death, when that craving comes up, that, we don't want to give up our current identity, and then we want a new identity, because at some point it becomes clear, okay, I got to separate from everything in this life. But then this incredible craving and clinging comes up of, without this body and the whole environment around me, which makes me who I am, I'm going to disappear and go out of existence. And so we grasp to have another body, we grasp for another rebirth. And that is what makes the karma ripen at the time of death. So I know there's a song that says, love makes the world go round. But the Buddha said craving and attachment make the world go round. Okay, meaning our samsaric world. Okay, so here, a general definition of attachment, we're going to apply it over the broad, all the different kinds of attachment. Okay, so just as anger was projecting or exaggerating qualities of an object, attachment is also projecting or exaggerating qualities of an object. Okay? Anger makes those qualities all bad. Attachment makes those qualities all good. So it's interesting. You can have one person, and Joe looks at that person and exaggerates even the same quality, and calls it negative and gets angry. And, somebody else looks at that person, looks at the same quality and says that's positive and gets attached to the person. Okay? But both of them, they're exaggerating, So whereas anger is pushing away and wanting to destroy or get away from, attachment is, I got it, I'm clinging, I can't separate from this. Okay? Yeah, it's my brother at the bottom of the swimming pool holding onto a tricycle. Yeah, it's a little kid. Yeah, when you were a little kid, did you have a little blanket or stuffed animal or something that mom and dad took everywhere with you because it was the only thing that would calm you down? Yeah. So it was some old beaten up thing by the time you got done with it. But you loved it to death. And when you were upset, that blankie or that stuffed animal just pacified you, and you just got so much comfort, holding it. Yeah. Like this. Yeah, do you remember as a kid? And how we imbue certain objects with, so much meaning. And you can see how this goes into miserliness. Because I remember as a kid, somebody gave me a scrapbook, these are pre-digital days. Yeah. So I wanted to save all sorts of things to remember my childhood, like an old toothbrush. Yeah. So, something to remember my childhood. Yeah. Yeah. Becoming a Buddhist was good for me. Actually, after I became a Buddhist, I had to clean out my stuff. I was going back to India. And so I was throwing all this stuff out, all my scrapbooks with all the boys I dated where you saved all the napkins from where they took you. Yeah, you remember that? The napkins and the little trinkets and the ticket stubs. Yeah, remember from the movie? You'd save the tickets. So it's all, I had a page for each boy I dated. And saved all these things. Some of them got quite a number of pages. I went out with them for a long time. And, and you save all these things. And then, of course, when I decided to go back to India, this was before I became a nun. No, it was when I was going back to ordain. I was throwing all this stuff out, and my family was just aghast. Like, how can you throw this stuff out? Yeah, how can you throw this out? Yeah, very easy. I thought my mom might go in the garbage can and, rescue some of it. Yeah.
That only happens here.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's true. Here, yeah, you throw something, like shoes. You throw something out. Although I haven't seen my golden forest shoes. Did somebody finally throw those out? They're in the kitchen. Oh, really? Oh, okay, yeah. So there's a pair of somebody gave me some shoes that were golden with golden fur around them. I mean, fake fur, yeah. Totally not something I would wear. I wore them. They were my forest shoes. I wore them out to the forest for a few years until they got so disgusting I couldn't stand them anymore. And then I threw them away. And then the next day, somebody had taken them out and they were back on the shoe rack. And they were so old and disgusting. And it happened again with a pair of shoes I threw out last winter or two winters ago. Old, beat up. And they're sitting on the shoe rack. Somebody took them out and put them there. Yeah. So it's not only me. Yeah. Okay, some people had their hands up. I talked over them. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to share with all of you that I have a pillow sitting in the room over there from my childhood that I still use. A guilty pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. So attachment can take many forms, But it's all based on exaggerating, yeah, or projecting good qualities that aren't there, and then holding, you know. Attachment is holding, clinging, craving, wanting, grasping. I've got to have, I need. Okay, so attachment is just like that. And okay, so what does attachment do? Sweeping us in the torrent of cyclic existence so hard to cross. Okay, so cyclic existence is like often, you know, said to be like an ocean or a torrent, and you're pushed along by self-grasping, you're pushed along by ignorance, okay? So this is what craving does, or attachment, sweeps us in that torrent. So we're trying to get across to the other shore. There's, you know, nirvana is the other shore. We're trying to get across to the other shore. So you enter, you know, you're trying to get across this body of water, and you can, because your attachment is just pushing you. Yeah. And this is the hardest thing. Yeah, this is the hardest thing. And it's you know, for people who disrobe, it's usually based on attachment. Yeah, they're attached to something. They want that thing, and so they disrobe. Yeah. And so this is it. You know, you're in the prison of samsara. You're trying to get across the torrent of existence, and then you cling on to something, and it totally impedes your attaining liberation or awakening. And of course, when you try and give that up, not only your own attachment won't let you, but society won't let you. And society says, how can you give that up? You know, you need this, or it needs you, that person needs you. You are responsible for this, that, or the other thing, you know. And then we start thinking attachment is so sneaky. It is so sneaky. We are attached very often to other people because we feel that they cannot, or we think that they cannot survive without us. So that makes us important. I am so important that this person cannot survive without me. So I've got to always stay with that person. Yeah. So it's usually family members. Yeah, most of the people when they ordain have to deal with that. Or, you know, husband, wife, whoever it is, yeah, some kind of family member. And this thing of, you know, here, this person is just going to fall apart if I'm not with them. Yeah, even to the point of pets, you know, I can't leave my dogs and cats. Yeah, because some people are more attached to their animals than they are to human beings. Yeah. And you know, but this thing, it brings a certain kind of self-importance. You know, I am needed, so I'm important. This person can't function without me. Now imagine when you're dying and that thought pops up in your mind. I'm leaving whoever it is, or many people. And you think, how are they going to make it without me? What's that going to do to you when you're dying? Yeah, that thought is going to cause you incredible torment. Because at the time of death, there's no choice but to separate. Yeah, Lord of Death does not give us a choice. Yeah, it's like, time to go. But if our mind is sitting there going, they can't function without me, then we're not going to have a peaceful death. there's going to be an incredible amount of craving, grasping, attachment. Yeah, which makes for incredible, very excruciating, because there's no choice at that time. Yeah? Or if it's not they can't live without me, it's I can't live without them. Yeah, I can't separate from them because I can't live without them. You know, we've been together for how many years? Yeah, maybe in the case of a parent or whatever, you know, you've been together with somebody your whole life, and I can't be separated from this person. And yet, at the time of death, there's no choice. We have to go on alone. Yeah. So attachment is like it's like glue. Yeah. So some attachment maybe you can pull away from. It's like the cheap Elmer's glue. And some attachment is the gorilla glue or the elephant glue. You know? It's there and we can't move from it. Yeah. So very difficult, very painful. And the thing that's so tricky about attachment is that we often, not always, but we often feel so good when we have attachment. Because when we're with the object of our attachment, we feel wonderful. Yeah? So if it's a person, you know, you're with the person you're attached to, you feel fantastic. You're on top of the world. Yeah, especially when you fall in love. You know about falling in love? Yeah, we've all fallen in love, right? Yeah, haven't we all fallen in love? Not one time, probably many times. Yeah. And then what happens? Yeah, because we fall in love and we go directly to Hollywood. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Go directly to Hollywood prison, you know, where you're making this whole, you know, fabricated thing of our life together and what's going to happen. And, you know, it can, you know, it's often when we fall in love, but I remember you talking about with your sister that you had planned on growing old together and living in the same place, and now that's not happening. Or, you know, we have any number of things that we imagine, and then, you know, we're holding on to. And the nature of samsara is whatever comes together has to separate. Yeah, whatever comes together has to separate. Yeah, but attachment says, we came together, we're never separating until I'm sick of you, and then you can get lost real quickly. Yeah. But, you know, so it can be in terms of people, money and possessions. People are so attached to money and possessions because money has so much, a whole variety of meaning in our culture. It indicates success. It indicates social status. Yeah. It indicates love. You know, I love you, so I give you money. Yeah. It indicates what else? Security. Yeah. Security. Yeah. It indicates freedom. If you have money, you can go do whatever you want. Except you're attached to the money, so you're not really free, but never mind. Yeah, so it indicates freedom. It indicates what? Power, definitely power. Yeah, we can see that now. Yeah, and we think that people who have money are smart. You know, if you have a lot of money, you must be smart. And spiritual, how spiritual? Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, talk about that a little bit.
But just that there's this idea of prosperity as a sign that you're doing things well and God's rewarding you,
Yeah,
evidently.
yeah. So it means, yeah, you're very you're in God's good grace. Yeah. Okay. So, we can be attached to money, not necessarily for the things that it gets us, although it also indicates pleasure. Yeah. But for one of the other things that it signifies in our life. Yeah. You see sometimes parents who cannot spend much time with their kids because they're, working or traveling for business or whatever. So they give their kids lots of money. That indicates love. Yeah. So many different things we can be attached to. And social status, class. Nobody likes to be looked down on. Nobody. Yeah, so money can give you some kind of status so that people can't look down on you. So sweeping us in the torrent of cyclic existence, so hard to cross, we're conditioned by the propelling winds of karma. So we're trying to cross the ocean to get to the other side, across the ocean of samsara. We're getting pushed by the torrent of anger, of attachment, and the winds of karma. Okay? And so, especially at the time of death, craving and clinging, which are both forms of attachment, they're the 8th and 9th of the 12 links of dependent origination. Those arise at the time of death, and they're what fertilize the karma. And when the karma ripens, it fertilizes particular karmas. And when those karmas ripen, that's what throws us into a particular rebirth. So it tosses us in the waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Because when craving and clinging come up at the time of death, the karma ripens. We are attracted to another body. We very happily go into that other body, even if the body is painful. So they say, at the time of death, if you're feeling cold and you're attached to heat, you could very easily, find yourself in the hot hells. Or if you're hot and you're attached to cool, you could find yourself in the cold hells. Yeah, simply because of this kind of grasping and how it makes the karma ripen. Okay, so birth, aging, sickness, and death, those are 4 of the conditions of samsara. Yeah, so it's indicating here, we're tossed in the waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And this is the thing we so often don't realize. That we're in samsara. We just take it all, well, yeah, birth, aging, sickness, and death, yeah, that happens, and we'll deal with it later. Yeah, but we don't think what causes it. That my afflictions are causing this, my ignorance, my craving and clinging are making me do actions that are going to ripen at the time of death and throw me into another rebirth. And then I experience birth, aging, sickness, and death again. Yeah, and at the end of that life, again, craving and clinging arise. Don't want to separate from our life, grasping for some kind of identity. Yeah, and then again, ripening karma, boom, in another life. And so we've been doing this since beginningless time. Yeah, when you really think about it deeply, that we've been doing this since beginningless time, then it gets very scary. It gets very scary. But then what prevents us from staying with that understanding is, but I'm here and I'm me. And the vision of this life is so strong that we can't imagine being anywhere else. In fact, we can't even imagine dying because we feel so strongly, I am me and this is my world. Yeah. So you can see, that strength of how we're just grasping our identity, creating an identity and grasping at it. And then when you think of being torn from this at the time of death and all this craving and grasping coming up, yeah, then, you get some feeling of what samsaric rebirth is. And again and again and again and again doing this. So the flood of attachment, please protect us from this danger. This is a big danger to be protected from. Yeah. And like I said, attachment is so sneaky because when we have the objects that we're attached to, we feel happy. And so that we think, well, the purpose of life is to feel happy. What's wrong with feeling happy? I should have the things that I'm attached to. What's wrong with that? Well, first of all, the Buddha didn't say there's anything wrong with happiness. And the Buddha didn't say there's anything wrong with other people or possessions. What the Buddha said is, when we get attached to those things, that attachment brings us misery. But it's interesting how we always put things in the framework of what's wrong with it, as if there's some kind of moralistic judgment to it. Yeah. If you want to be attached, it's a free world. You can be attached. There's nothing wrong, but just realize through your own wisdom what the effects of that attachment are, and then decide if it's something you want to continue or not. Yeah, same thing. People say, what's wrong with being angry? It protects me. It lets me know that something is wrong. Okay, nothing's wrong with it, but just see what the effects of it are and see if you want to continue being under the effects of your anger. Yeah. So anger we can see. It's so much easier to see that it's not very advantageous. Attachment, but we feel good. We're with the object of attachment, we feel good. And so who wants to give up something that we think makes us feel good? So in my exploration of that, what I've discovered is I'm more attached to the pleasant feeling. The pleasant feeling is really what I'm attached to. But I think that the object is the cause of the pleasant feeling, as if the happy feeling existed in the object. So when I had contact with it, then, instead of catching the virus of anger, I caught the virus of happiness. Okay? So this has so many good qualities. Look at this. It's so beautiful. We won't look at the scratch here. Because when you're attached, you don't look at the negative things. So we see the scratch and see the dent here, but we're not looking. It's so beautiful. Look at the color. It's so beautiful. Yeah? And it screws so nicely, and it holds water, which I love. Wow. And it's so useful, it's so beautiful. And when my friends see it, my friends think I'm really something because I have this beautiful thing. It's mine. And I feel so happy. Yeah? So I don't want to give it to anybody else. I don't want to be separated from it because happiness is in this. Now, you're all looking at me like I'm stupid. Okay, because I'm talking about a thermos. Yeah, but just substitute something else for thermos, like your house, your car, a person you're very attached to, your bank account. Yeah. Some trophy that you earned back in 8th grade that you can, again, not bear to give up, even though nobody else wants it. But we can't give it up because that 8th grade trophy was, I was on top of the world when I got that. So every time I look at it, your computer, your smartphone. Yeah. People come here and we say, please put your smartphone in the little safe thing. Oh, I put my smartphone there. Your smartphone is here. Yeah. It's like when, Venerable Samten says, please put your smartphone in. People are looking, but it's part of my body. Yeah, it's permanently conjoined to my hand. I cannot separate from my smartphone. Yeah. It is very interesting to watch what happens. Yeah. Having to talk people into, giving, detaching the smartphone from their hand. But it's amazing, how we feel so good when we have the objects of attachment. And it's scary to give them up. And yet separation is part of samsara.
It's amazing how many people want to put the phone in their car because it'll be safe there. And if they need a hit, they can go get it.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, I'll put it in my car. I won't take it out. Yeah. Yeah. What? And then they're down there like 5:30 in the morning. Yeah. Or up on the hill. Yeah. Yeah. They think we don't see. Okay. So it's quite interesting to look at and see, what are the things we hang on to and what's the effect on our mind of that kind of attachment. Mm-hmm.
So did you say that it's the attachment, the feeling of attachment in and of itself that is the intoxicant here?
Yeah. Well,
that's the sense of happiness. That's the source.
The intoxicant is the pleasant feeling. Okay. And we think the pleasant feeling exists in that object or person. When I say object, it includes people, status, whatever. So I have to have that because the happiness is in that. But the actual thing we're attached to is the happy feeling. Because it's very interesting. Why do we daydream? The object is not there. But when we daydream about the object, we feel a happy feeling. It's the happy feeling that we're more attached to. Yeah, so we daydream. Hmm?
So it's the exaggeration then of it all.
Yeah,
that generates the happiness.
Yeah.
And then we're attached to that feeling.
Yeah.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, we're attached to the feeling, and then the attachment is that thing that's holding on, and that's what causes us the problem. Yeah, the nice feeling itself is not non-virtuous. Yeah, the nice feeling does not create negative karma. It's our attachment to it that attachment motivates us to do a lot of actions to get whatever it is that we're attached to so we can have that nice feeling.
This almost sounds to me exactly like the mind training we're doing with Tara, which is we have a mind stream we're trying to habituate, which is a place of refuge, and attachment is habituation that we've had over our lifetime of creating a refuge, which is a false refuge.
Yep.
And they're both mind training. One was natural and led us down the samsara path.
Yep.
And Tara is going to help us potentially buffer, counteract, whatever.
Right. She's directing our energy in another way. Like when we take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha, okay, Lama Yeshe used to say, taking refuge is not something new to us. We've been doing it all our own life. But what we've been taking refuge in as the source of our security, as the source of our happiness, has been things that don't have the ability to give us that security and happiness. Okay? So in America, what do we take refuge in? Our credit card. Yeah? You take refuge in your credit card, don't you? Yeah? Even you're in debt, your credit card is so precious because it's going to get you the happiness you want. Even though you're in debt and the debt is killing you. You're attached to that credit card. We're attached to our car. Yeah? We're attached to the refrigerator. Yeah? When we're bored, we need something to do. What do? Open the refrigerator. Okay? Yeah, we're attached to other people. This process of taking refuge is very familiar to us. It's just that what we've been taking refuge in leaves us at the end of the day disappointed and with a ton of destructive karma because we've done all sorts of negative actions to get what we're attached to and to protect what we're attached to and to prevent separating from what we're attached to. And at the time of death, whatever it is we're attached to stays here, but all the karma we've created in relationship to it comes with us into the next life. Yeah, so that's the killer.
All those things you mentioned, to me, are kind of like soothing events or soothing sources. I came out to get a peanut butter jelly. I was in like an emotional distress today. And I literally went into my own world. Like I totally forgot about the schedule here. I forgot about there's people talking, and I was over there getting peanut butter jelly. And it was all just self-soothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like taking refuge in the peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
It's what I was doing. Despite spending an entire week learning about Tara, trying to learn how to visualize her.
Yeah. We go to our old objects of refuge. Somebody over here, Susan. Yeah.
The pleasant feeling, that's really the thing that we want to have. That seems to me like there's a potential problem there. Even, I mean, in addition to the object that is representing or triggering the feeling. Or is that accurate?
Yeah.
I mean, I need to be aware of that. And then, look at what's driving that feeling. And I'm craving the feeling, actually.
Right. We're craving the feeling, but that object triggers that feeling.
Yeah.
So we that transfer the craving to the object.
But I still have an issue I need to look at, right?
Yeah.
I can stop transferring it to the object, but
Yeah.
what about the feeling that's there? It doesn't sound like it's, I mean, it seems like it could be non-virtuous. No?
No, feelings are the result of previous karma. Happiness is the result of virtuous karma. Unhappiness is the result of non-virtuous karma. Okay? So the feeling itself is not virtuous or non-virtuous.
Just
It's
neutral.
the clinging to it.
So the next
Okay.
step.
The clinging to the pleasant feeling and the to the unpleasant feeling. That's where
Okay.
we get triggered.
Okay.
That's where we start to create karma, and that's where our mind starts, going in circles. Yeah. So the thing is, if we can experience happiness and pleasant feelings and just be content with them, wow, that's a nice feeling. And when it ceases, that's fine. Yeah, I had that happy feeling. It's ceasing. That's okay. But we go, no! Yeah, that happy feeling was coming from my chocolate, and I want my chocolate. So I think, in a way, when we look at the in Tara, we're making offerings. When you visualize beautiful things in your meditation, it makes your mind very happy. Yeah, so you visualize beautiful things, but you're offering them to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. It gives you a very happy feeling. Yeah, but we're not craving anything. Yeah, you visualize yourself as Tara, and you feel great. Yeah. And the more, so but the idea of doing these practices isn't just so that we get a hit of good feeling and forget it, because the whole practice is underlain with emptiness. Yeah. And the wisdom of bliss and emptiness. So, yeah, that gets involved there.